What if the way you communicate your leadership is the very thing holding your career back? Today, we are breaking the cycle of being overlooked and underpaid. We are talking about making your value visible and owning your voice without shrinking. If you are ready to build your legacy in real time, you are in the right place. Let's go. Welcome to Women of Color Live, the live version of Women of Color in Intimate Conversation, a top 20 women's empowerment podcast. We center and empower women of color. We also have a free newsletter built specifically for Black women 50 plus, the Dream Lifestyle Collectly Weekly Rhythm. Go to DeneenLGarrett.com to get started. I want to shout out our production team at the Leon Thomas Group, and specifically Orrin, who's on a ones and twos. And today's guest, I'm so excited to speak with her for a number of reasons. One, we connected on LinkedIn several years ago, and we stayed connected ever since. Two, she is in Denmark. So here we go again with our global guest, which I love. I love to talk to people all around the globe. And I want to get into a focus of hers. So I'm not going to say it yet. Let me go ahead and introduce her, give you her background. She's a speaker, founder of FCK Being Stuck Coaching, and the master of Bad-Asshery, who turns complex power dynamics into practical visibility. This month, we are launching the execution series, Power, Pivot, and Purpose. And there's no better way to kick it off than with Tanya Spencer. Again, we're about to get into this Bad-Asshery. Tanya, welcome to Women of Color Live.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here.
I am so happy to have you because I have been wondering for a while what this Bad-Asshery is all about. I have a question though. Why spell it that way? Why the H?
Because I'm slightly dyslexic. But I kept it. If you had asked me why I kept it, that was because afterwards I realized that it by accident spelled bad as she.
Oh,
so and then there's an RY, but I'm just ignoring that part. Like badass she. I was like, oh, let me keep that. And then also people would comment on, oh, you're the one that spells it that way, and so it became part of my branding and a part of my uniqueness, and I lean into my uniqueness. So that's why I'm keeping it. But why I have it is because I made a mistake. But I own my mistakes. You know what? I own my mistakes and I own my glory. So I'm okay.
And I love that. And I'm glad I asked, right? Because you said being dyslexic, there's probably someone out there who's watching, listening, who may be in the same situation, who may have, when they made a mistake, they may have felt and really internalized that. But in your case, you owned it. So you're giving them permission to do the same, to own what others may perceive as a mistake.
That's right.
Yeah. So I love that. Okay. For those that are watching, tap in, engage with us. We want to see your comments. We want to, questions, whatever you have for us. Drop WOC, drop a heart if you're family or friend. Again, get in that comment section and let us know you're out there. All right. So Tanya, you've worked in high stakes environments from conflict zones to corporate boardrooms. What was the moment you realized that being capable wasn't enough to be visible?
Oh, when I saw that question, I said, oh, this is when I have to admit, this is turning into my confession. The thing about that is, I know that there's lots of women, too many women, who have experience after experience where it's like being rubbed, the ocean rubbing you down and wearing you down. I had the opposite. I've had just a few experiences, but what did it for me was that when I looked around, I was like, why am I the only one here? Why am I the only woman? Why am I the only woman of color? Where's the rest of us? And so my evolution is not coming from being so much worn down, but realizing I was alone. And I did not want to, if I could, and I am, creating the space for other women to be in those places, to have their voices, to show their power. So yeah, it's coming from a different angle than a lot. Of course, there's been times when someone, oh, why are you this or why? But that is so few times. I have been selected because of what I can do more than I've been deselected. So that's more my angle from it.
Yeah, and you know what? And so again, you're in Denmark, so you're in Europe. However, you are from the US. So do you have different experiences? Like, was your experience in the US different than the experience that you have now or have had now in Denmark?
Well, most of my work experience, because my background is actually in global travel security, and crisis management. So when I say that you need to think more like Afghanistan, then you need to think of like I'm on the sharper end of security situations, right? So kidnapping, rape, extreme violence,
Okay,
war, coups, yeah, all the good things. That's what I'm really. All the bad things. That's what I'm good at, right? So the places that I've worked in, it's not really U.S. or Europe. It's more like, okay, in Pakistan and in Afghanistan, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Sudan, So if it's burning, that's usually when I got called.
Got it. And so they knew you for your expertise and tapped into that. So that's cool. Now this is a whole different experience, right? Haven't had anyone in crisis management, and definitely not anyone who is familiar with war zones. So that's totally different. So this podcast, as I mentioned before, is to empower women of color, Black women 50 plus. And so what's some of the what makes you unique in this space? Like, what can these women take away from your experience that will help them to be resilient in any space?
Well, the part that I think women can relate to and that I hope to inspire and show the way is that there have been multiple times where when everyone's looking around going, okay, who's going to be the leader? And okay, Tanya. And so I was chosen to lead international security networks. So I have been the strategic lead for women in security for 24 European countries. Where it's like, okay, how do we get more women into security? How do we get more representation? How do we make this network inviting and understanding and serving our women members so that we can attract more of them? I have done that also for being the chair of a security network that we were 140 different organizations, and then they asked me to be the chairwoman of the security and safety. So that ability to be picked, well, first of all, it's just great. It's just fun, at first I was like, when I was younger, I was like, oh, okay, it just happened. That's nice, and then later on when the realization, I was like, wait, why aren't there more women here? Why aren't there more women of color? We're in these countries and yet where are they, right? And so what about me? What are my attributes? What are my competencies? What are my personal traits that people trust and want to be the leader of the, of the group or whatever. And so that is something that's basically influence, right? Where I wasn't seeking influence, people were giving it to me. And then I worked it backwards and go, all right, what was it about me? If I boil down my experiences, what can I distill and give on and pass on? And that's whether or not you're in corporate or an NGO or in your religious community, your church, whatever group that you want to be the leader of. How is your presence? How's your positioning? What is it about you that people go, we want her.
Yeah.
We want her to lead us, right? Because that is the ultimate power move. When you're not actually doing the moving, or people are like moving for you and going like, yeah, we'll make this happen for you. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you. I'm glad you can see what I can do.
Absolutely. And so 3 things that stood out from what you said: influence, why me, not as in questioning why me, but what are the things about you? And then the presence. So presence is one where it's kind of elusive, right? Like, what does that mean? Like, especially when they say executive presence, like, what does that mean? And then the influence, like, how do you get to that space of having influence? So can you tell us a little bit more about all 3 or any of the 3 that I just outlined?
Okay. Okay. For example, preparing for this interview, I noticed something that I do that a lot of women don't do. It is very normal to think about, what am I going to say? What are my slides? How am I, what can I prepare? So they're preparing the thing. And what I do is I prepare my presence. I prepare myself. So when I'm getting ready, I'm grounding myself and making sure, and I'm telling myself, I got this, right? I could have like, I was telling someone today that I was like, yeah, I've had like Civil War breakout while I've been facilitating, and everyone in my participants were the head of NGOs and like the European Union funding organization. And so like I had regional and country directors, and like Civil War broke out in Sri Lanka. I mean, like full on, like it wasn't, and I was in a crisis management workshop. So everyone's looking at me like, okay, like, let's not do the exercise. We got real people. We got hundreds and thousands of people on the ground. We need to make decisions. There's like aerial bombing. There's, it was war. And so, being in that kind of situation, going like, okay, and being grounded, right? Mm-hmm. People talk about like being grounded. It's like, no, being grounded, right? I can talk fast but I can also go into this. All right, I'm here, right? When you lower your voice and you slow down your voice, that is a sign that I'm in control, right? When I'm getting excited, then you hear and you experience me as being excited. But if I'm talking really fast and very high up, you're experiencing me as being unsure. So there is a difference, and I'm conscious of, like when I speak Danish, hold on, if I can do it right now. So if I speak Danish, my voice goes up because I'm not so sure, right? And so these little things where what I'm projecting in that presence is I'm projecting, I got this. Mm-hmm. I'm okay, I am the good hands, right? Like you can trust me. Like, go ahead and give it to me. I got this. I got you, and I've got us, and I'm going to lead us in this. And I'm doing that through my communication, right? My body language, my pacing, my tone, right? And being conscious of that.
Yeah, so my relationship counselor, we talk a lot about grounding. So grounding is very critical in centering yourself, in taking control of your space, being aware of yourself, and then when you're in situations, how you respond, right? So I want to just really emphasize that for those who are watching or listening, start looking into grounding yourself, right? Taking that time to slow down, to pause, to breathe, to maybe even think about some things like, breathing in, um, I'll just say goodness, and then letting go. I'll just simplify it and say badness. It is, deeper and different than that. So just look into that and consider that whole grounding. That's one way that Tanya is saying she shows up. That's how she prepares her presence of how she wants to be seen, how she wants to be experienced. So thank you for that, Tanya. So for the woman who is currently stuck in a male dominated environment, which sounds like you have loads of experience, how do we begin unlearning the habit of over explaining or shrinking our presence, which neither sound to be an issue of yours, but you still can give some insight?
But I have my moments, right? I also should say, when you challenge yourself, that's the thing with imposter syndrome. I actually say go and embrace, like go hug your imposter syndrome. Like I'm like body hug it, right? Like, because when all that imposter syndrome is being eyeball to eyeball to a challenge, and whether or not you blink first, right? And that's shrinking, right? So if in my worldview of like go hug your imposter syndrome, like I got you, challenge, come and challenge me, right? So there are moments when I intentionally put myself into higher and higher situations, right? And challenge myself. So I experience it. I just have the tools to deal with it. And so there's like we all are facing our own challenges, but do you have the toolkit to be able to feel like this is a challenge. I've handled challenges before. I've got this, yeah. It's trusting my toolbox. It's trusting me so much. I trust me so much, like I will make my mistakes. I will do this. I will fall. I will do, but I'll get up, like it's not a problem. It's not a problem. I got this. I'm amazing.
Right. I am. I did that. I remember who TFI am. No, I love all of it. And you did make, and I like that you pointed that out, that, yeah, you do those things. It's just that you have resources and you have tools, you have the grounding, you have those things to call in to get yourself centered, to be able to move forward in a situation. So that is, great to point out, right? Because again, just listening to you, listening to the space that you're in, how you're moving, how people are seeing you, they're seeing a person who knows how to navigate the spaces, who knows how to navigate themselves personally, their emotions, their experiences, all the things. And again, that's what you share with us as far as grounding as one way to be able to do that. So that's a great tool. And again, I'm so glad you brought it up.
Can I go back to the grounding
Yes.
thing? And this is my number one thing. I think it's coming up. I wanted to make sure that I brought it up in this time together, because for me, the number one thing is trusting in yourself. Mm-hmm. When you can go into like, oh, I shouldn't have so many ums, or I should do this, or my hand should, whatever. Skip all that. Trust yourself. Whatever it is, trust yourself. Trust that I will land on my feet, right? And when you have that, as for me, that's more the grounding. So the other things are techniques
Mm-hmm.
to support me in establishing and getting deeper into my trust. But the trust is the ground, right? It's where everything for me is coming from. And then from there, I'm like, okay. So, I can do the breathing, I can do sure, I'll write down some notes or whatever it is, right? Those are techniques, but the ground is the trust, or the trust is the ground.
Got it. Trust in yourself. Absolutely, because it does start with us, right? Everything that we do starts with us and us taking ownership of it, us, tapping into it, us realizing the power that we actually hold, and that it's okay if we do something that, whether we may perceive it as, others may perceive it as a misstep, etc. It's fine. It's part of living. It's part of life. It's what you do afterwards. It's the moves that you make next. So Tanya, this is, I want to get into this because I'm so excited about it, but you talk about Bad-Asshery as a leadership tool. Many women fear that being badass means being difficult. How do we own our power without losing our authentic voice? And before you answer, and before we go to break, if today's conversation is landing for you, the Dream Lifestyle Collective weekly rhythm is where we go deeper. It's a free newsletter for Black women 50 plus who are ready to dream, decide, design, and drive their next chapter. Go to DeneenLGarrett.com to get started, and we'll be back after break. Hello, everybody. It's me, Deneen L. Garrett, a cultural alchemist who shapes culture through storytelling, through writing, through speaking, and through the Dream Lifestyle Collective, which is a community for Black women 50 and up. You also know that I have a podcast, Women of Color, an Intimate Conversation, which is a weekly live on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Well, as of Friday, it's official. My journey to become entrepreneur of impact has ended. Good news is I did make it through top 5. Again, the bad news is the journey is over. Yes, a bit disappointed that I will not make the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. I will not have the 101 coaching with Damon John. And of course, the $25,000 prize money, which was going to be invested into the podcast and the collective. But hey, here's the thing. Those things can still come. They can still happen. It's just that my contest journey is over. So there's that. So if you're wondering how to back up, first of all, thank you. Thank you. Because of your daily votes, because of your tax-deductible donations to Gen Youth, I did make it through to top 5. So, let me go ahead and celebrate that. Let's clap it up for that. Now, wondering how you can still support me? Multiple ways. Watch and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe and listen to the podcast. If you are a Black woman 50 and up, join the collective. And if you're a business looking to sponsor, hit me up. So just getting started. Just one part of a journey has ended. It's only open space for this next part. So again, thank you. All right. Welcome back to Women of Color Live. Today we're talking about the execution of power and making your value visible with Tanya Spencer. And before the break, we're going to get into the Bad-Asshery. So this is the part that I'm excited to get into. Tanya, I had asked, how do we own our power without losing our authentic voice?
That's a good one. There is, if you can imagine a matrix that goes like this, where you have likability and you have competence, right? And very often, I don't want to get into generalizations, but okay, let's just use a generalization to give the example, where women have been conditioned, and it's not just American women, it's just not in Kenya, it's not just in India. A lot of women from around the world, we've been conditioned to focus on our likability, like me. I have to be nice to you. I have to give you my place. I have to show you. I have to do for you so that I don't have space or energy or time to do for myself. And what ends up happening is that we're focused too much on the likability. And what we could do is also recognize that competence is another way of another area that is really important for people trusting you. So before I talked about your own trust, but if we talk about people putting trust into you, then when you are finding more like the middle point between likability and competence, then people are more willing to put their trust into you. And that, when that happens, that is influence, that is power, right? So when you're aware of, am I leaning too much into my likability? Like, you know, I will do the clean. I will organize the birthday things or whatever it is, right? You know, instead of going like, wait a minute, are you doing that because? Are you really doing that because it's going to support you and your goals and your purpose and your power? Or are you doing that because it's nice, it's likable, right? Right? And now other women, and this scale works for both men and women, but for us women, we need to just be aware of that. We do tend to go over into the likability, but some people also overcompensate on the competence one. Or okay, you know, I've got 5 PhDs. I got, you know, like I only talk in nerd talk. I only, you know, and I'm a little bit guilty of that. Like, I got 2 master's degrees. Like, what am I doing with 2 master's degrees? Like, you know, I mean, I got them because I wanted them, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I also got a lot of other degrees. You know what I mean? Because like, oh, let me show the world. You know, because I came from a household where my dad always told me, you have to be twice as good. You have to be twice as that. You have to be 4 times as everybody else, because it's like, you're a woman and you're Black. No, you won't be more than double of everybody else, right? So, so I like overcome. Okay, and I want to be clear that I'm not putting down education. I'm very much pro education, how it expands our thinking and expands us as humans. What I'm talking about is getting so much into your competence and trying to overcompensate that you're actually repelling people, because people are most trusting and therefore giving influence to you, or, you know, handing over their trust to you and some of the responsibilities over to you so that you can lead them, right? They're saying to you, lead me, lead us, because you're likable, and you know the heck what you're doing.
The combination.
That find that center point as much as you can, and just being aware of, am I being too likable or too unlikable, right? Competent and no, you don't know what you're talking about, so just, you know, just keep it quiet, you know, for this time, right? When are you in that middle ground? Because that is your strongest point.
Yeah, and it definitely can be a balance, especially how you're brought up. Like you mentioned, the things that you heard in your household, which I think that's common in Black households, you know, having to be double, triple, FIPPL better than other people, do more, etc. And it's evidence, right, in the number of women who do have multiple degrees, who have PhDs, who have risen to the heights and, all those things, and then still being at the same level as somebody else who has none of those things, right? And the difference is race, the difference is their gender, right? So we do know that, we do understand that. And so the competence piece, a lot of us have that, the likability, make sure that we have that as well. But again, it's that balance. We don't want to lean too much in either. Go ahead and just figure out that balance. So this Bad-Asshery, what is it? Talk to us about it.
Oh.
Oh.
I don't know, because I'm just like,
go.
I'm like, I am it. So is there more? Like, is there
Right.
It's just me. I mean, but like everybody is their own, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody is their own, having their own level of badassery, and you define it, right? So my level of badassery may not be for you. Mm. And for the next woman, she defines it in a different way. The thing is it's the daring to actually define it in your own way and being comfortable with it. And it's going back to that trust thing again. I'm trusting. I am not looking at the social media. I'm not looking at y'all look pretty. Y'all, you're doing good over there. But when it comes to my badassery, I define it. I decide what that means in my household, in my work, in my community.
I love that. So in the work that you're doing with women, right, you're helping women to own their badassery. So what are some of the ways that we can, right? So understand, we have to define it. I love that you said daring to define what it is, right? Because that's huge. Daring to define, regardless of what we're talking about. And it also aligns with our framework for living your dream lifestyle, right? I mentioned define as one of the keys, right? Dream it, decide what your dream is, define that dream, and then drive to make it happen. And in this case, similarly, dare first. So we can even add that, dare to dream first, right? But dare to define your badassery. So what's step one? Other than being daring.
Steps. Oh, I've never thought of it in terms of steps. Mm-hmm. Now I have to think. Like, quick thinking. Always going back to that trust, right? That self-trust. Because if you don't have that, what are you projecting? Then you are projecting the fears that you're trying to hide. So many times we're going through life where we're trying to put down the fear, and actually that's the thing that is showing up the loudest to other people, right? How much are we fighting that? So mm-hmm. When you have that trust in yourself, when you go, okay, I have my flaws, I have my this, I have my that, but I'm okay. And I'm okay. Sorry, don't say but. I'm okay, right? So what would be the next step? The next step is building up your confidence. And that is, I'm getting repetitive here when I'm talking about trust again, because like people are talking about, with confidence, you need to test it. And when you have an experience, you can say, look at that experience. I now can trust, or I now know that confidence comes from this place, right? Of like doing, right? Mm-hmm. For me, it's the belief. I believe. Are we noticing that I'm just putting the word believe instead of trust? But like, okay, we all know that I'm saying trust, right? I I'm trying to find new words for saying trust. It is really, it's just going back down to that, because what you project out, what you signal out is coming from within, right? And so that confidence, that is coming from the belief that I will find the way, right? When I want to influence someone, when I want to show them that my project or my proposal or whatever it is, the way that I want to do things, then I'm getting them to trust me. Mm-hmm. Where is that coming from? That's going back to my own trust, right? Then if you look at power, power is coming from systemic, larger sets of trust, where the system, the organization, the team, the school, whatever it is that you're focused on, that a larger group of people, a system is now trusting you. And let me just see if this analogy works. If you imagine a pyramid, upside down pyramid, if this point here is fragile, then the whole thing would tip, right? So, and that's that self-trust. Well, I got to be careful with that. I got to be careful with that because Anyway, what I want to say is that the base. So I guess I should put the pyramid the other way around, right? The base of the pyramid. But I was also thinking that sometimes we can feel like, oh, we're being swayed, we're being challenged, we're being all these things. But however way you want to see your pyramid, let me take back the analogy. Whatever way, that base, that foundation has to be strong, so that if you are now going for the president of the union of whatever, the group you're in, right? Or if you're going after being in the C-suite, right? Whatever it is, that base has to be solid enough to withstand whatever winds or rockiness or changes that are coming your way, because they will come your way.
Yeah. So really, when we're talking about, master of Bad-Asshery, that's a reflection of how you show up. That's how you own how you show up, your presence that you talked about. That's how you walk through life that way. And so what we did here in real time is, you started at that and then backed into it as far as like, how do we get there, right? So overcoming that fear, which we talk about fear on here all the time. Fear was part of what kept me from launching my podcast. I was hesitant until I wasn't, right? And I Nike'd it and just did it, right? And so now we're 6 years in the game, right? We're in this podcast game 6+ years because I felt the fear and did it anyway. And then trust. There was a president at he was in one of the business units at the company that I worked for. And he said, and I hear this, that you have to repeat something like 7 times, maybe even 7 different ways before it sticks with some people. So by you repeating trust, that's fine. I didn't count how many times you said it, but you might have you can go at least 1 or 2 more times before we end this. And then power, right? Getting to that place of having our power and owning our power. And so it's how you choose to show up. So the woman who's listening or watching, she may not choose to show up as a badass. She may choose to show up as a diva, as, something else, as whatever is her choice. And it's kind of going back to, like you said, daring to define it. You define what that is for you. So I guess what really I should ask about is FCK Being Stuck Coaching.
FCK. FCK.
F angry.
F angry. Yes. Yes. What do you want to ask about that one?
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about that. So what type of work are you doing in this coaching practice?
Okay. Can I tell you how I came up with the name?
Yes.
Because it's a bit funny where I had burnt out. I had over 10 years, well over 10 years of having burnout and stress and depression and back and forth and not really recovering. So I wasn't getting back to where I was. I was just getting, and then I would go further down and I would, and then I've got to end this cycle. What can I do? I love teaching. I love coaching. I love working with women and women leaders. So let me start up a coaching company. And so I have my first company is 23 years old. So I started that. So my first company was Training Solutions, and I was in women's magazines, right? Like I was like the national news came to my workshops. Like I had reached a certain level where the national news were coming to my workshop, and I was but I couldn't anymore. And so when I had that period, so I had made it. Like I was actually being a consultant for the UN, right? And for global corporations and enterprises. And so I made it, right? And like I was on TV news as an expert on, security situations that Denmark faced. And when I crashed, and it took me so long to get back, and then I went in. I was, what can I do? What can I do? Because I can't keep going back to doing that kind of work. And so I thought of coaching. And then when you start a coaching company, I tried all these courses, and they're like, oh, you need a niche. You need a niche down. You got a niche. Like, stop telling me to niche, and they were just all the time telling me to niche, I'm like, and then I was trying to think of, it should be a cool name, and it should be like only 3 words, and it should be, and I was like all these shoulds, right? And I was like, I just want to coach, why do I have to do all of this? And then at one point, I just yelled out in my kitchen, like, I'm gonna beat my own self. So I was like, being stuck, right? So to keep it clean for the family friendly podcast here, but anyway, but I used another word. Right. And I was, that's it. And I was just yelling. I thought my neighbors must think she lost it, because I was just like, and I found the name, and I was just so happy. And when I wrote it down to ChatGPT, it was like, you can't do that. People won't accept you. And I was like, if I have a name like Being Stuck, I really don't care. At this point, like I am not attracting the people who are, if they want something nice and like green blue coaching, go get your green blue coaching, right? Like go get that. Right. But I am for that person who is just like, no more. I'm done with this. I want something different, right? And they have the decision, and they have the power. They now need direction and support with recognizing, tapping into being their bad-assery.
Right. And they're coming in the door ready to work, right? Whereas in other coaching, it could be like you're coaching them to get to the point of actually putting in the work, right? Whereas with yours, it's just telling you up front, we about to get into it. So either you're with it or you're not. And if you're not, keep it moving. But if you're ready, pull up those sleeves, get to work. This is for you. So that's what that, represents to me. And so that falls into, or that really leads up to, what is the one communication shift a leader can make today to ensure she is no longer overlooked for the next big opportunity?
Oh, just the one? Okay. Ooh.
Bang for your buck. What's the biggest bang for your buck? We know that there's multiple.
This is
A big bang. One that comes to mind.
one big bang is I have a quiz for you.
Ah,
I will quiz you. All right.
okay.
My turn to switch the
Uh-oh.
microphone and I'm asking you. All right. Tell me, who uses the pronoun I more? Men or women?
Ooh. I'm sure it's probably the answer is probably men.
Okay. Who uses the word pronoun I more? Leaders or staff members?
Ooh. That's kind of tricky, but I'm going to go with staff because as a leader, it's more about we. It should be.
All right. Older people or younger people?
Medium people. In between people. Older.
Yes. The use of the word I shows, so if let's assume you are a leader, right? You have a team. Doesn't matter the size of the team, you have your people, right? You use the word I to indicate that you are leading the direction, the outcomes, the strategy, the progress, right? When we use the word we, and women use the word we more, as do followers, as do younger people, as do students who are not doing as well. They use the word we. So you were about 50% correct, right? In the we, right? And the men one you got, right? Because when we're using the word we, you're distributing the responsibility and the accolades, the credit to the group. And what you can end up doing, and this is like kind of female speak, where we talk about, oh, we did, the team did, we led us through, we did that. When you're using that kind of language too much, you are then positioning yourself to not be needed.
Mm-hmm.
And when there are so many cuts that are happening in the job market because of AI, because of, the times that we're living through right now, you do not want to create a reason to have you to be the one to be fired. Right? So if you're talking, you say we as in, say, like the process, we did, the team did, because you want to give recognition to other people's work, right? You don't want to backstab your team. That's not going to end up good either, right? That's going to give another kind of problem, right? We did the process. I led the direction, right? The team implemented my strategy. So being conscious of, are you using the word we too much? Especially as a woman leader, because we're unconscious. Again, this conditioning, and this is Sri Lanka, Nepal, America, Canada, let's put in some other countries, right? So many women have been conditioned to have this group think. Yep. And then when they are looking at the next level, okay, now I'm going to start positioning myself for the next level, right? Meanwhile, they've erased their contribution to getting there, right? So that's super important. It's super important to find that balance We did process. I led the direction and the strategy. Yeah.
No, I absolutely love that. Because so for me personally, I would have answered it slightly different only because of experience, right? Getting to this point, kind of like what you're saying, I did when we're talking about a process. What I will also say is it is, I think that with women, we do a lot of questioning. Well, should I say I at this point, or should I say we? Right. So, yes, to everything that you said, how we've been conditioned. There are some women who are now leaning into, well, I did this thing because I did do this thing. I remember someone having, they kind of commented on my LinkedIn. This was years ago. And they said, your LinkedIn, you talk about yourself or whatever. I'm like, well, it's my LinkedIn talking about me. So I didn't, so what are you talking about? Of course, this individual was a man. And so that also comes into play, right? So we're talking about this communication shift, and do know that when we do make communication shifts, when I make a shift, you make a shift, how it can be perceived by other people. And you just have to own it. You just have to trust yourself, and you just have to go ahead and move forward with it. But I love this simplification. I led, and we, when we're talking about process. Love, love, love. Now, what about the old versus young?
That's so older are also more the I. Better students are also in the I category. So these are all groups. I need to check the statistics. I don't have my statistics with me right here. But I think there's also around different ethnic groups, but I don't have that as a fact, so I don't want to say it out loud.
And another thing that I want to throw in here as well, because I was thinking about this when you were talking, because that's why I said additionally, like, okay, I'm sure it's men are saying I, because men will go for it, right? They don't care if they have the experience, the skills, whatever they want it, they're going to go for it. And I had listened to a podcast several years ago, and it was an individual speaking to that, was saying how in the workplace, typically generalizing, it was fact, she had facts to back it up. But what she said is that women, the job criteria calls for 10 things. So you're supposed to do these 10 things in this job. We women, we're going to do those 10 things. The man is going to go to the boss and say, which 3 do you care about? And those are the only 3 that that individual is going to focus on. And that individual is likely to get promoted, so on and so forth. So that's another thing that I think as a shift is to learn from your leadership what 3 things they care about. And then, if you're looking to move on to the next level, you're wanting to be promoted, you need to know from the decision makers, what do they care about? Because they don't care about those other 7 things. It's just part of it. It was in the job rec, right? But they really do care about those 3 things. And then also going back to when we were talking about, being liked, and you mentioned, organizing parties and whatever. Again, I remember being in situations where the boss, the leader, was like, I don't care about that stuff. All those things are fluff. So for the ones who were like doing it and they're organizing all the parties, it's like, that's cute, that's good, but you're not the one that I'm looking at for a leadership role. So those are things to think about. But again, regardless of what it is that you're doing, when you're wanting to make moves, you want to go to the next level, you need to know how you get there. The person who can get you there, what are they looking for from you, and then lean into that.
I have 2 things to bring up related to that a statistic that I found shocking is that women put in about, on average, 200 hours, 200, let me say that again, 200 hours of non-promotable work.
Yes.
That's 200 hours where you could have gone to your kids, to a football game, right? That's 200 hours where you could have gotten enough sleep. Let's not underestimate that one, right? That's 200 hours where you could have done something else, done a certificate, focused on those 3 things that you're just talking about. That's 200 hours per year.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to live that many years before you realize that if you multiply that, right, that's a massive amount of time where you're organizing the party, you're cleaning up, you're just, I know this from my own stuff. When as a consultant, I would go in, to an office, and I would not switch clients, but I would be in different clients' offices sometimes, like every week. So Monday they would have me until Friday, right? And then I would fly out and go to another client. And I would see like the women are the ones that are just cleaning up the cups, and I'm like, I don't touch a cup. I don't even know what a cup looks like unless it comes to me. Like, I don't even know what it looks like. Because once it's dirty, I don't even know what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like, I will clean up my own cup. But no, I'm not going, no, not doing that. Because those little things add up into, that's that old saying, you can't say yes to the right things if you haven't said no to the wrong things. Yeah. And that is measured by 200 hours. I know I keep saying that, but like really, I want people to understand that's a lot of time where you could have done something to make yourself stand out or gotten some extra sleep, because really we all need extra sleep, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And to your point about the 3 things, that I call that speaking outcome-ish. I make up. So I call that speaking outcome-ish. And that is being super laser focused on the outcomes that the executives want, that the board wants, that people who can decide your fate in this organization for right here and now. Maybe you change it, you do whatever, that's later. Talking about right here and now, if it's important to them, learn how to speak that language. Learn how to speak impact, outcomes, results. So that goes into when you're talking to your senior manager, you start with a thing called, what they say is the bottom line first. Here's the results, and this is how I got there, right? You don't lean into the process. You lean into the result, because that's what they care about. How does this help us move forward? How your boss is like other human beings, and they are selfish and want to advance, right? So how are you helping them advance, so that they're focused on their boss helping their boss, right? And that's how it works in larger organizations. How can we all advance the objectives that we've set for ourselves as an organization, as a corporation, right? And so as a woman leader who's looking to advance, then speak in that language, show those results, and be focused on your impact, your results, and your outcome. So speak up.
And that's what this whole conversation really has been about, right? Leaning in, a person in the workplace, a person in corporate, person wanting that visibility to get to the next level. That's what this conversation is pretty much, giving a blueprint on how to get there. Impact, outcome, results, knowing those, right? Again, like I said, finding out from the person who decides whether or not you go to the next level, what is it that they want you to focus on, and then laser focus on those things. That's what it's all about. Now, I do want to say something a little bit different. For me, before I retired, it was about knowing what I wanted, right? And whether, and I would start coaching people or saying to my peers, like, hey, you need to know what it is you want. So if your focus is getting to the next level, then you want to do all these things, right? All these things that Tanya and I have been talking about, what Tanya has been saying, you want to do those things. If your focus is, let's just say you want to, run a marathon, then make sure you're doing things that help you to run that marathon, do your job, and only say yes to things that are going to get you to that marathon, but do your job, right? So you got to get clear about what it is that you want. And so going back to the person who's like doing a parties, whatever. Well, if your interest is, let's say, event planning or things of that nature, okay, lean into that, but just know that your boss may not care about it. So that's, again, you need to know what you want for yourself and then how to get it, and then positioning yourself to get there. So I'm going to jump to our last question.
Can I? Yeah. I because the way that I visualize that, if you can see like a Venn diagram. So you can imagine two circles, right? What I want and what's important and what my boss wants. And where does that overlap? So what you're talking about is the one side and I was talking about the other, but actually the best results is when you are clear about your direction, your goals, but also what keeps them up, what is bothering them, what is important to them. And that overlap, that is where you can become extremely successful by understanding where those two things meet.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. So for this last question, Tanya, for the woman watching who has the credentials, but is still waiting for a seat at the table, what permission do you give her to build her own table?
Yeah. You don't need permission. You don't need it. Okay, that was a quick answer. You don't need permission.
No, and you know what? And that's my mantra. It's you don't wait. You don't wait for permission. You become it, and when you become it, everything rises to meet you. That's the Dream Lifestyle Standard. So join the Dream Lifestyle Collective Weekly Rhythm, a free newsletter with strategy, inspiration, and community for Black women 50 plus, ready for their next chapter. Again, go to deneenlgarrett.com to explore. And I want to thank Tanya Spencer for tapping in, for the virtual relationship that we've had for about 2 or 3 years, for coming on and giving us all permission to dare to define what Bad-Asshery is for us. So appreciate you, and want to thank the Leon Thomas Group for holding it down behind the scenes every single Thursday. This show runs because of you. So again, thank you, Tanya. And for those who are watching or listening, share this with a woman who needs to be reminded that legacy is what you're building right now. And we'll be back next Thursday, June 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern with Nicole Welch, production manager, to talk about the pivot. Again, thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Orrin, and see you next time.